Hi, my name is Andrea Schermoly, and I'm the choreographer of Klein Perspectives that'll be staged at Ballet Tucson this year. I am born in Pretoria, South Africa. I grew up in Johannesburg. I went to a performing arts school. I was on the national rhythmic gymnastics team, which I think has affected a lot of my work, kind of athletically and just how I like to move bodies. But I went to I left on a scholarship to Rambert Ballet and Contemporary School, and then was transferred on a scholarship to Royal Ballet School, which was very exciting. Lived in London for a couple of years, went to Boston Ballet, and then danced in Netherlands dance theater most of my career. So the trajectory is classical, but ultimately contemporary dance, which I think was always um, my calling. I love ballet, and I actually choreograph a lot of ballets now because it's obviously a wheelhouse I have. But but it's always has like a thread of contemporary, and I think that um, growing up in South Africa, that was a big influence. We had a lot of contemporary in South Africa, and a big influence from NDT and Ohat Naharian and people that toured. Batsheva toured a lot, and I was always very aware of them. And I think just the kind of the gritty nature of Africa, like that, although we have a lot of Royal Ballet people because it was a colonial country, that's the training is primarily like that. The contemporary scene and the African dance scene is really equal. And so it's quite common to find South African dancers that are good contemporary dancers because it's just a language that's carried on there. It's always just been there. So I feel like that's the way I choreograph. I've got a little bit of like, I don't know, some African soil in me that just I do like gritty, but there's aesthetics obviously that come from being a classical person. So I think it's fun to see that in different countries, like where your influences go and taking on other people's ideas and then finding your language. But professionally, now I choreograph. I've been doing that for years, and I think I love it more than dancing because I like making other people look wonderful. I am so excited that this piece is coming to Ballet Tucson for so many reasons. One, I just love the energy of Maggie and everything she's doing there. And two is Danny and Fu were original creation dancers within the piece, and they are phenomenal in and of themselves. Danny will help me stage it, and Fu will yet again do the same role that he was doing, which was very special. It has a really lovely pas de deux at the end. And I just think there's also a vibrancy within the company that seems like is right to bring this piece to life again. And I want to see it on stage there again too. So I'm very happy about that. The original creation was for Kansas City Ballet. And it was within a triple bill with actually two other choreographers, one of whom I used to dance for when I worked as a professional. And that was a great honor, actually. It's nice. It's kind of amazing when life starts to do that. But it was an original creation. So all the dancers within KC Ballet made that with me, and we discovered that language together. And then Ballet Tucson now is the first company to take on the full piece. So last season there was a gala of the last duet, and now it'll be expanded into the whole piece. And I love that Fu and Danny are still in it. And Danny actually is shifting from one role to a different role, which is really exciting. That's always great, just as a dancer, even to have that capacity within a piece. And then I get to revisit it too. So that's always a joy because there's always things you want to rework and look at and tweak. And then people do even better the second time around because you've got different voices that are bringing it to light. So that's fun. So Klein Perspectives sort of had a dual name for fun. One was it's based on the works of Yves Klein, who I love, who's a 1950s painter, very influential Nouveau painter. He was French originally, and he coined or discovered and used for most of his career a blue color, a cobalt blue color called Yves Klein blue. And I grew up in a family of artists, so this was always a huge thing. And we would always talk about the power of the blue and the fact that it was so specific and quite luminous. And he has quite a lot of sculptures of angel wings in this. He has sculptures and paintings in the blue. He also works in red and yellow a little bit, which feature throughout the piece too. But he had kind of an interesting utopian vision of the world and abstracted that with bodies, primarily women's bodies that were either painted or even rolled onto canvases. And various forms of their bodies were also extended into what looked like kind of archangel wings. Uh, I I just love the work specifically. It always just spoke to me. It's really modern and impactful, and the blue really in person is so magnificent. I've often stood in front of those paintings many times in all the different cities I've lived in and just marveled at them. And they seem to have what I liked about it was this very interesting opportunity to kind of highlight women out of the piece. So the way I've used it is I have blank canvases, which were made by a wonderful designer, lighting designer Trad Burns, who will probably do this again. And we had a wall of canvases that then I extracted those people off of the canvases, and those people become the living women that live within the canvases. And it had a little bit of a somber tone because I felt like maybe they were a little bit trapped. Maybe they had their own stories within the paintings we didn't know, and just kind of the duality of being used, but also just not having a voice completely, because I think a lot of those women were featured voiceless. So I thought that was kind of an interesting thing just to play on that and see where that took me. And the piece grows within finding out each of the women within the paintings and their relationships to the men that are or have them captured in the painting. Also, the word Klein in Dutch means small. So perspectives meaning just small perspectives on another angle on something that I like and am interested in and wanted to illuminate differently. But I'm a huge fan of Yves Klein, so it's an homage, but it's also just like it was something I wanted to explore in terms of like what else went into that. The style of the piece I think is kind of similar to the style of the painting actually, which was first of all abstraction, but also moving and removing parts. And so a lot of the color stuff that I've worked with, especially with the women, they're each in a solid color. At one point we see all the colors together where they interact with each other kind of in a little power play. And it just to sort of form different versions of what that painting and what those sculptures could have been like. And so the work itself in terms of dance is contemporary, but all the dancers have a really solid ballet background, as they do in Ballet Tucson and everywhere I would like this to be staged and did originally. So the lines are pretty, like the women look they look aesthetically pretty, the men look aesthetically pretty, and there's a lot of duality with the duets. I think the power play with the duets are fun because the women aren't lifted so ethereally. They're quite grounded, and they work almost they work together with the men in a way that they're equally powerful, valuable, doing similar steps. But and then musically, it's within a classical musical realm, but I would say kind of a little more pumped up. I like to work quite fast, so I think some of the sections are zippy and just fun to sort of watch. It's zippy and athletic, I would say. Quite difficult too, I think, a lot of it.